It's become fashionable, maybe kind of sport, to look across the Atlantic and to see this crazy, uncertain, dysfunctional, almost dystopian country that's you used to know as the United States of America, and think about, maybe with some version of pity, perhaps, if not humor. Of course, we look back across the Atlantic and say, well, at least it could be worse. But you might be surprised in that context to think that what's going on in the States around circular economy is kind of a bright spot. In fact, it's lots of little points of light, I think, that cumulatively are becoming a bright spot in this space. When I'm trying to think of how to frame what's going on out there, the best analogy, if you'll indulge me for this, is that as a circular economy in the States is kind of like teenage sex. Everybody says they're doing it, and hardly anybody actually is. And even the few who are doing it aren't doing it very well. But we're at this really interesting moment. And I have to say that in my 30 years in sustainable business, I have not seen anything like this. I've seen lots of trends, memes, frames, buzzwords come along, but nothing that has gotten to this point to the point that everybody is talking about it. And if you go around a group of companies, around a table, as we do, and ask 30 large companies, what's the conversation going on about circular economy, you'd be surprised to find, first of all, that there is one. Now, it may be small, it may be aspirational, it may be just thinking about it or planning about it. Maybe they've set some goals, maybe they have some pilot projects. But the mere fact that that's taking place at that scale is really, I think, extraordinary. And so there's really something going on, and this is a really interesting moment in time. One other data point. Next week, my company is launching a conference called Circularity in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's the first of an annual conference, and we said, okay, we need to be doing this, and with the great support of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the Cradle to Cradle Institute and about 10 other organizations that we work with all year round, we've put together this program, and we said, well, we've never done this event before. How many people should we expect? And we said, well, if we get 500 people, that would be cool. We cut it off earlier this week at 850. And so we don't know, that may just be good marketing, but the fact that this level of interest is going on is really kind of extraordinary. And I think the big challenge that we face is the same challenge that everybody in this room faces, this entire community, which is how do we actually think about this at the systems and the scale that we need to be doing this? We talk about scale a lot today, but the challenge is how do we stop looking at this from the component perspective at the systems level? It's also become very fashionable to talk about the system and systems change and systems transformation. We've got to change. The system is broken, we hear a lot. I don't think many people really appreciate what does it take to change a system? And what is the system we're trying to change in any given product or sector or value chain or value loop, as we should now call it? I don't think we have a very good sense of that, and I know there's a lot that we need to be doing in the States, but I think in this room and the entire community, but understanding how systems change and what the systems are that we need to change. So, very brief moments that I have, I want to leave you with just a couple of thoughts. One comes from a friend of mine who's here today, Angela Nahikian, from Steelcase, who herself I consider one of the bright spots in this firmament of circular economy. She said something at one of our conferences earlier this year that really stuck with me and really resonated, which is, don't underestimate the power of this moment. And by extension, don't underestimate your power in this moment. That we are in this really interesting place, this really interesting time to have the power to, at minimum, tell stories. And we don't have a sense yet of what's the story we want to tell. What's the story we get to tell if we get things right? And it's in framing that story. We know what happens if we get things wrong. We've been hearing that story for a long time, and thank you for those who made that story vibrant and understandable, but we need to be able to tell those kinds of stories, and the power to do that is in this room. And so I would encourage you, we are working on that very hard in the United States to learn how to talk about this and learn how to tell these stories so that it is understandable beyond the immediate group of people who are involved with it, that it is a powerful notion that we can all get behind. And I think we're going to be there. So watch this space. I look forward to coming back to Summit 2020, 2021, and 2022 and having really exciting stories to tell about things happening at scale that are really transforming the system. Thanks so much.